Here we are on the second turn of Fehrbellin. Launched under charge orders. We got the, this is the first round. Let me see if it's going to continue. So we got no leader bonus or anything, so continuation is a 0 through 3. So this isn't going to continue, so it is the extent of the attack by that main right cav wing for Brandenburg. They made some probing down here to begin the attack. The plan was to continue trying to roll up this flank. Countercharges, etc., kind of repulsed that. There were too many units in their way, some of them not in great shape. So they attempted to swing around this way. Were far more successful there. They brushed aside a couple of cav units, took a gun out, and this is actually a Swedish unit, but the rest over here that are hidden are Brandenburg units. So overall it was not a bad action for them, but we'll see, because I think the Swedes caught a break with getting rid of the Brandenburg leader, and they've got a pretty solid line now. I would be a lot happier if I had a heavier gun here, or here. Instead I've got the heavy gun here, and I've got to figure out how to get it someplace where it can do something useful. So Derflinger got 3 consecutive actions, and he marshaled his forces, got them out of open order, and then launched a charge. And that was successful. Drove one unit back, destroyed another one. The unit that was left here, though, got destroyed in turn by a countercharge afterwards, and we've got some Swedes back here in the brambles near the cannon. Not quite sure what's going to happen there. I think they'll be taking the gun out, actually, just because they're there, and I don't see what's going to stop them. Alright, well, all we got left are Swedish turns, because they're all low priority. So that's actually the end of turn 2 here. All I had was the Swedish actions, and the center largely didn't have much to do, so they fired artillery, didn't have an effect. They made an attack with a foolish attack with their pike unit. Fired a salvo, caused casualties. They should have just held their ground and continued just pumping lead into the cav, as long as it's sitting there. But instead they wanted to push them forward in order to get a more solid line, and they got driven away, and now they have a much weaker line, actually, in the back. This left flank cav couldn't do anything because the leader's injured or off map somewhere, and yeah, he's not injured, I don't think. I don't remember. And this the right flank tried to reform and only got 1 action because they're in the receive charge position. They're not drawn up close enough together to use the make ready formation to prepare. Alright, so what we're seeing really in a lot of ways is the Swedes don't want to attack for the most part against where the Brandenburg cav has moved forward. A large reason for this is they just want to delay, and as long as there's kind of poorly formed and unprepared units in front of the good stuff in the second line or whatever, that delaying becomes a lot easier. So pressing the aggressiveness button, trying to push this attack into a bloodier one, doesn't really make sense for them, even if they have a temporary advantage. So for example, there was a consideration of whether to attack this formation, a shaken unit with 1 gun down. You got a slight advantage hitting it, but they actually didn't have that option because they didn't get an action. But that thing being in the way is probably more helpful than anything else. Well, this is a mess. This is in the midst of a charge being taken by that big cav force. Now, before I was kind of sweeping to the two wings, but I got to the point where I can't do that anymore. Basically, I was 2 hex momentum range. I either had to start cantering up or just put the spurs to the horse and take my licks at the front line, and that's what I'm going to do because I want those momentum bonuses, but this is not going to be pleasant. First of all, getting shot up wasn't pleasant, and now I'm going to have to hit those pike infantry. We'll see what happens here. We've got slight advantages on every one of those, I think, except maybe where the firepower just demolished the cav. Also trying to press on the flanks as well. Alright. And the result of that charge, I mean, they broke the line, but it was costly. In part because I think I forgot to use my pistols a couple of times. I mean, that's a +1 edge. But it would have broken it a little harder in a couple of places. I think over here I forgot to use it in at least one combat. No big deal there. Definitely pushed forward. Now there's the backup line though, and they're in no condition to face that. And I'm going to have to pull back and try to reestablish. We lost the leader again. The casualty piles showing up. They don't look terribly overwhelming on either side. The Swedes have lost a little more. Alright. Okay, that looks like the end of the third turn. And the Swedes only got 1 wing active down here due to casualties to their leaders across their other wings. That wing tried to reform, but it isn't getting anywhere in its routing. We're seeing routes on both sides, really. As the mess continues, but I would say the Swedes are definitely getting the worst of the deal right now. Casualties look like they're still pretty close to even, but the weakness in the line looks pretty bad for the Swedes. It's hard to tell though, because this Brandenburg force really isn't ready to continue fighting. None of them are. They have to reform. I mean, this part isn't. This part's broken. They really have to pull back and try to get this under control. Now they can't drop into a rally action. Not while Derflinger's wing is in rally, or else they leave the field. So it's going to be real hard to get that thing moving again. It's going to be the big disadvantage. I got to figure out where the leaders go. The one named guy, Delwing, survived and is coming back. So that big cav wing couldn't get out of charge formation in the first attack and engaged, not completely without success, over on the 2 flanks, but in the center. Boy, did they pay a price. And they had to advance, and they had to essentially attack to protect themselves. For example, here, where 2 of their routed units came from, they were adjacent with 2 smaller units. If they didn't attack with both, they would have been beaten up with worse odds against one of them. Likewise, they'd just be standing there taking fire combat, but that and just disintegrating. Got a continuation. And this is where these big formations just really are painful. I mean, not only tactically is it annoying, but it took a significant amount of time to handle that one activation. I'm slow, whatever. I want to break, but I can't have one. I have to fight that second second activation out, and there could be a third one. That's not a big deal when there's only a handful of units, but when you're covering half the map with one formation, it can be a bit tiresome because there's a lot of involvement in each combat, each activation that is actually active. And I tried to get out of charge again. That would have made it a little cheaper. No, can't do that. So there's no rest, and that's kind of a painful aspect of the system as a whole for me. Only really comes into effect when you have these big formations. Same thing over in Great Battles of History. Okay. On the bright side, that big formation isn't that big anymore. They managed to get themselves cut off out of command. So the stuff down here, actually, really only this section is in command still. The rest of it can do stuff, but not much. First of all, most of it's broken, so none of the pieces can do a lot. But one of the pieces which could is just moving its way, trying to find command again. There's really only a couple of units that are keeping this out of rally right now, so I don't know how much longer it's going to last. Derflinger's going to have to bring his unit back into some kind of non-rally command. Alright, after 4 turns, both armies are pretty much in disarray at this point. Still got a fairly strong center in the Swedes, although this guy's wiggling his butt at the cannon that just shot him. They're trying to dress this line to provide some defense against everything. It's fairly solid in the front, but there's nothing really facing in the front anymore. Those guys ran off. I think this is Swedish, actually. Yeah. So I don't know why he didn't rally. He should be up one state. Okay. Some of the outlying forces, like this guy, have been stopped from routing as we pulled things together. Derflinger's getting his command, trying to prepare for another attack, but he's still in rally state. That's main right cav wing. It just doesn't look to me like it's going to last much longer. And if that breaks and Derflinger can't get out of rally, the Brandenburgers leave the field. But otherwise, the 2 cav wings for the Swedes are pretty much gone. We got 1 stack here and 1 stack here, and that's it. So it's an all cav against an all infantry army. Now, my instincts tell me the cav should win. They should be able to. So here's the thing: if the infantry could dig itself in someplace safe, sure, but for the most part at this period, these heavy infantry formations, unless they just form a circle, there's no way to really defend yourself against the cav, because the flanks, etc., make it just, you don't get enough firepower coming out, so you don't cost them enough when they come in at you, and then they're gonna demolish your kind of brittle formation. So it's kind of a waiting game, because and it has been the whole game, I guess, because the Swedes, as soon as they get here, they can leave. But they do have to hold out, and right now we're kind of looking to see, well, what's going to happen with the Brandenburg troops? Are they going to be able to rally and attack one more time of value? Because what they have right now, they've only got a couple effective units left in that big wing. And it's just not enough to roll up this entire Swedish force. But if they could rally their force, they'd have it. I don't think there's enough time, but we'll see. I'm going to send this one up because it's over my don't know, whatever 10 minutes or whatever that I kind of like to keep these at.